Hello, boys and girls. Mrs. Blackburn here today. We are going to begin a new writing lesson over tall tales. So let's go ahead and look at our learning goals. Today's learning goal, students will write a tall tale with character, setting, problem, solution, ending, and hyperboles. Your success criteria, I can successfully write a tall tale including character, setting, problem, solution, ending, and hyperboles. Today we will be specifically focusing on the brainstorming of your tall tale, and we will also be looking at the characteristics of a tall tale. So let's go ahead and look at the characteristics. I have a checklist here, and what I want us to do is we are going to go down the characteristics of a tall tale. The main character is a larger than life memorable person. So in order to help us identify, you should have listened to the independent reading activity, the story of Paul Bunyan, that was in today's lesson. So referring back to that, was the main character a larger than life memorable person? Absolutely. So we would put a check mark there. That is definitely a characteristic of a tall tale. The tone of the story is serious. Well, no, the Paul Bunyan story definitely was not a serious one, so that is not a characteristic of a tall tale. The story is set in the American frontier. Yes, this is also a characteristic of a tall tale. The story describes events that could really happen. No, there were lots of things in Paul Bunyan that we listened to today that could not happen. So that is not a characteristic. Number 5, the tone of the story is humorous and good-natured. Yes, we can say that about Paul Bunyan, for sure. Number 6, the story teaches a moral. But we don't really have a moral that the story teaches. We definitely could walk away and say that there are themes within it, but it's not a moral that some of the other kinds of genres teach us. So no, not really. The story describes events that could never happen. Absolutely, there are events that could never happen within a tall tale. The story contains vivid words and detailed descriptions. Yes, that has lots of figurative language within a tall tale. The main character has to solve a mystery. Nope, definitely not solving any mysteries there. And finally, the main character has to overcome an obstacle or defeat an enemy. Yes, that does happen in a tall tale. So we can think back to Paul Bunyan and even Johnny Appleseed. If you have listened to or read Johnny Appleseed before, that is also another tall tale that you may be familiar with. So I will put a link to Paul Bunyan to kind of refresh your memory. But again, that is the IRA, the Independent Read Aloud for today. So you should have already listened to that. So next on the agenda, what we are going to do is your assignment for the week is you are going to actually write a tall tale of your own. So it's going to be a modern tall tale. So I thought that would be fun for you and get us able to identify the characteristics of a tall tale. So you know, all good writers, what do they do first? They always plan out their writing. Well, I wrote a tall tale, and I'm going to share with you the planning that I did, the planning and the brainstorming. But before I share that with you, I wanted to show you my graphic organizer that I used. So here's a blank one, and the characteristics that I definitely want to have, you to have in yours, and I had to have in mine, tall tale, we needed the setting, we needed some kind of voice and dialect, we needed problem solution, and then we want that figurative language, that exaggeration, those hyperboles. So let's go ahead and take a look at the planning that I had created so I can share that with you. Okay. So let's look at the top. This goes into a little bit more detail. The setting, of course, is where and when will the story take place. That's something you'll have to think about when you do your brainstorming. Voice and dialect, from whose point of view will you write this story? So we've talked a lot about point of view last week in our reading mini lessons. So that's what that is talking about with voice and dialect. Then what wicked weather will you be taking on? How will you defeat it? So that is, your tall tale is going to be about wicked weather. So I've kind of narrowed down some things for you that may make it a little easier, all right, for you to go through this process. And then finally, what exaggeration will you use? So these are the things that you are going to be brainstorming your ideas about. So when I planned mine, for the setting, I decided that I was going to use London in contemporary times. So where and when? London contemporary times. My voice and my dialect, it's going to be from the point of view of a British teacher. And so I also have pupils, U.S. students, and underground train in the subway. So those are also things that will be in voice and dialect. Remember, from whose point of view will you write the story? So that's the different point of view that I will be using within my story. And then next, problem solution. There's going to be a terrible fog that descends over London. And then the solution is going to be that people blow the fog away. So you see how that's going to make it a tall tale, right? And then these are some hyperboles that I came up with. The fog was so thick I could not hear the radio news. Another one I came up with, I had to scoop my way through the fog with a soup ladle. See how these are exaggerations? Okay. And then I tasted the fog and it had a vanilla flavor. The fog precipitated over Denmark as the fog precipitated over Denmark as vanilla shake. Okay, so those are all exaggerations and hyperboles that I'm thinking that I may or may not use within my tall tale. So that is your assignment. You are going to write a tall tale, and it's going to be about defeating wicked weather. Okay, so we know wicked weather is the bad guy. Remember, we have in a story a protagonist, which is a good guy, and an antagonist, which is a bad guy. So we know that wicked weather will be the bad guy. And then for you to complete this anchor or this graphic organizer, you can either take a piece of paper and copy this down. Just make sure that if you do that, that when you upload it back to Schoology, that it's super clear. I will have a PDF that you can print this off if you have access to a printer, or I will have a puzzle piece created where you can type this in. Just make sure that you list setting and then list what you have under there, then put the category voice, dialect, and what you are putting down for that, then problem solution. So you'll want to have those headings clear so that your teachers will know what you have down for your brainstorming in each part of your tall tale. All right? Okay, so let's go back and summarize. So we know the characteristics of a tall tale. It has to have a character facing a challenge. You need to have a setting. You need to have a problem, a solution, and some kind of ending. And your assignment for today is to complete that graphic organizer and do the brainstorming part. Okay? If you have any questions, reach out to your teachers, and I'm very excited to see what you come up with.